today's battle of the plugins, we've got iZotope's Neoverb against FabFilter Pro-R. We'll be comparing these two plugins here to see which one is right for you. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so for our test here today, I have a beat that we made in a previous video, but here's what the loop sounds like. And then for like the verse, the same thing, just down an octave. Now I do have both of these layers right here actually routed to a melody bus, and this melody bus is where we can find our Pro-R right there. Alright, starting with Pro-R right here. Now this is going to be the mix at 100%, you obviously don't want that, you can dial down the mix. Honestly with this one, something around like 25, 20 is a really good range. And here, at this point, this low of a mix, I don't think we really lose any really like shine or character from the actual melody, and it instantly starts adding more depth. What I like to do from there is actually play with these bands over here. Now this is not a review for the plugin, so I won't be going too in depth, but this is the decay rate EQ, and this is the post EQ for the reverb. So let's play with those bands in real time. Decrease some of the low end. Already adds a lot more depth, and you can really hear the reverb trail out. It's really cutting through a lot of the mix, even by having like the other drums on and everything. You know what? I need to be able to hear what I'm doing. And then from there, I like really long reverbs as well. So just playing with this knob right here, the space knob. Increase the distance. I like a lot of character. Some more brightness. See how it really drags out with the imaging over here as well. And that's personally the reverb effect that I really like, but we're still not really losing any of the impact of the initial signal. Everything still sounds really clear, but if that's not really enough, you can go over to the pre-delay, which I always recommend doing, and turn that up a little bit more. Pre-delay is going to be the time in between the original signal and the actual reverb starting. This is a very useful tool for a mix to stay clean here, and it's very important for things like melodies and drums even. But more on that here in a little bit. I'm gonna really turn up the mix on here, and then really hear the delay from when the reverb actually starts with this very dramatic pre-delay. See how late that is? Alright, so for our melody over here, let's do an A and B comparison. I'm gonna try my best to dB match the original signal as well. Alright, here's the melody with Pro-R turned off. And on. Okay, so he listened to that tail drag out. Is my favorite part. It really is. Okay, so the consensus there is that we were able to get a much more full sound. The reverb was really cutting through the mix, but not mudding up our signal in the slightest. But now turning off Pro-R and going on over to Neoverb. And Neoverb being a part of the recent iZotope plugins, all of them have an assistant using AI technology to assist you in the settings. And you can actually play this in the meantime as well. Dramatic, for sure. Extra large, we'll go on down to like 25%, something around that 20%, and then bright. And you can still kind of hear the changes going on, but then hitting next, we'll start actually listening to it and cutting out the audio. Alright, so let's go over what it says over here, okay? So the auto cut is cleaning up an input signal to help with your pre-EQ. And then after that, we've got the unmask, comparing the wet and dry signals to create a custom reverb EQ. Hitting accept over here, we can see we've got the pre-EQ over here, and the reverb EQ. Kind of similar to how Pro-R does it as well, but a little bit different. It listened to the 20% that I want over this, that's perfect. And then the mod over here, getting a lot more depth. It was over here, now over here sounds really, really full. It sounds kind of like narrow, and then this one really helps spread it out. And for all the EQs, you can add an amount so you can see the curve kind of change. It's not a big deal. So let's try playing around a little bit with the EQs over here. Dragging out a lot more now, that's always good. And then this little circle over here, you can move around to get some different reverbs going on. We've actually got 3 different options over here, all going on at once. So the large reverb is going to be a hall or a large chamber. And then on the medium, we've got a plate or a medium chamber or a room. Now let's go and try and move around with the different reverbs over here. This one sounds a bit bigger. Cycle through some of the other reverbs. We can fine-tune it a little bit more, and you can really help it with like dampening and crossover and all that other stuff. So if you want a good blend between all three, over here is fine. Again, I like more dramatic effects, so I think more over here is my taste. All right, so one thing here that I feel like I should mention and that really stood out to me in this test here is that the AI assistant, not only in Neoverb here, but also any recent iZotope products, it's really missing the mark for me. I'm a really big fan of iZotope and what they've done with their Ozone product in particular. I've been using Ozone 10 for the longest time now, so I decided to upgrade to Ozone 11. And with the bundle, I also got a few different products there as well, like Neutron and Nectar, and then also Neoverb here. And they all come with this like AI assistant here. And for each plugin, I've been severely underwhelmed. I don't know if it's like the model that they're using or what the problem really is, but like Ozone 10 had the AI feature and it worked perfectly. Same thing with Neutron. But these newer versions, the AI assistant makes it sound really just not good. Like in particular here with the Neoverb, everything just sounds washed out, muddy, and just overall the clarity is severely lacking here. And yeah, I do know FabFilter Pro-R quite a bit better than Neoverb. I just got it, but it's just so easy to get result that is very pleasing, where Neoverb you gotta really work for it. So one thing I've not really talked about here so far is going to be the presets of both plugins. They both have them. As you can see with Pro-R over here, we've got something more like ambience, small, medium, large, very large. It's where you get like a black hole and eternity. Again, I usually stick to the more like very large areas over here, and some of these work pretty well, like the cathedrals work really well, the delayed synth space. A lot of these work out really well. All right, going on over to the Neoverb ones, it's a little bit more confusing. I'll go to like all-purpose, and dark and spacious is pretty good, but when it comes to any reverb really, presets can help get you started. I think that a more personalized experience is better for each signal, so I don't really rely on presets for reverb plugins all that often. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do over here. All right, I'm going to create an automation for the Pro-R mix and the Neoverb mix. The automation is going to be bringing in Pro-R, taking it out, and then bringing in Neoverb. We'll have 2 bars each of the exact same 2-bar loop, and these are both personalized settings for the current sound. All right, starting off with Pro-R. Alright, so if I'm being honest, guys, I really could not hear a huge difference. I'm using KRK Studio monitors, and I really could not tell a huge difference there at all, if not anything. You can definitely like hear some differences like tonally, but really if you told me that which one was which, I probably wouldn't be able to guess it if I didn't already know the answer. So as far as melodies go so far, I think they're both very comparable, but let me know down below what you guys thought. Could you tell a difference there? Let me know. Alright, so truth be told here, that's going to be the bulk of the test here, as I feel like the most popular way to use reverb is on your melodies, but that is not the only place to put reverb. But for this test, I want to get very specific on putting it on only a snare. Once again, decreasing that mix from 100, that's way too much. We'll go down to maybe a little bit more here, like 30. Try that out and see what we like. So for here, distance definitely has to be a lot more like the character. Brightness has to be a little bit different here. I think we might do something similar here with the curves. And yeah, it's got to be decreased. 20 is a good mix. Now, the most important thing when putting reverb onto drums for sure is going to be pre-delay. You really don't want the reverb to be cutting into the transient at all. Now, one more tip about putting reverb on really anything but drums especially is that it's very hard to tell without reference to the entire track. I honestly feel like any sort of reverb can sound really good if you're only soloing that one instrument. Like, reverb is just a very pleasing sound in general. It's how you make it fit with the current track that you're making that really makes the difference here. So turning back on the melody over here. Also with drums, you can get a bit more creative over here as well by really increasing that pre-delay. Might want to make that a little bit more synced to BPM though, so we'll try like that. That like slapback effect is so nice. Which also, speaking about slapback effects over here, we can really decrease the space and the decay rate. The BPM sync over here is really, really nice. Gonna go get the Neoverb. Didn't forget about you. We'll do the reverb assistant over here and see what it wants. Once again, dramatic. We'll put large this time, like 10% maybe, like we did for the Pro-R. And then bright. See what happens. Like, that sounds, like, I'm actually a really big fan of that. It sounds really good. Honestly, I think that Neoverb might have taken it here. Again, I think that either one, with the EQ available on both, you can really make them sound as close as possible. So once again, very comparable, and you can really achieve the same effect on both ones here. Okay, so elaborating on that a little bit more about the EQ, both plugins do have two separate EQs. In Pro-R, the top blue band is the decay rate EQ, meaning that if I raise a frequency range from 6,000 up, it's going to take those frequencies longer to drag out as opposed to something more like the 600 range. And that goes the same for the opposite. If I lower a band for frequency range, that range will end quicker. And the bottom yellowish orangish EQ is your typical reverb EQ. Where on Neoverb, you also have that reverb EQ, but the first band is going to be the input signal EQ. That's going to change the frequency range that goes into the reverb as opposed to just EQing it afterwards. And playing around with those bands can be very important, especially when applying it to our next test here, drums. Now, this track I made off camera completely. I'm actually just doing it for a test for a company that I'm working with. So all the green right here is going to be an AI generated drum loop, and I wanted to just put on a melody and see how it worked, and the track actually sounds amazing. Here's what it sounds like so far. Okay, honestly, one of my favorite tracks I've made in a very long time, and it was by using AI-generated drums sample and then a cymatics loop that I found. All right, so we're going to start with Pro-R, and that's really why I want to do the test on this track right here, is because it's all one sample, you know? So we're gonna have to work around the bass and the kick and everything like that, because bass, like, when you put reverb on a kick, it just sounds like it's like a basketball court. You know, so I don't really like that effect too much. I might cut into the mix, make it a little bit more muddy. So in order to counteract that, we can actually go over to the EQ. Also, we can turn down the space a little bit as well. Let me go and turn off the RC20. That's really distracting. Now, once again, muting that right there, and then going on over to Neoverb. Not bad. There's still just one thing that I can't stop thinking about, and that's whenever I put the Neoverb on something more like drums, I feel like you lose some of that impact, you know, like this one in particular right here. Listen to more of the actual drums and the reverb. The kick and the snare kind of lose some of their punch, where with the Pro-R, it just doesn't happen. Like, I just think that it helps mix the original signal better with Pro-R, in this case, at least for drums. I just feel like we're losing way too much of that punch from, like, the kick especially here. So as far as putting reverb on something that's very complex, like a drum loop, as opposed to the individual drum samples, yeah, I think that it's a clear, obvious winner, and really the only clear time today that we've had a winner, Pro-R in this case, takes it for sure. Now, yes, this video is a plugin battle, but I'm trying really hard here to not really talk too much smack on either plugin here. I'm just showing you guys the facts and the real-world applications, and then letting you guys decide what's the best plugin for you. And I gotta say here, both reverbs are very comparable, and the fact that I've been using Pro-R the most, and it's what I'm comfortable with, it would take a lot for something to have me switch from that to something new. For me personally, after using Pro-R, Neoverb is definitely not making me switch to it at all. The main thing that was so enticing to me about not only Neoverb, but all of the iZotope plugins recently was that AI assistant, and so far right now, that really seems to be its biggest drawback. And not just for the algorithm, I am genuinely curious on what you guys are thinking about these two plugins here and what's right for you, so drop a comment down below so you can share your opinion and we can have civilized discussions about it, okay? I don't want anybody being rude down there. And now, one final thing before I let you guys go here, there was another reverb plugin that came out after I recorded this video, and that's going to be Cable Guy's Reverb Shaper for ShaperBox 3, and I'll spoiler alert, it might be a much closer match for me. I mentioned that it would take a lot for me to switch, and that plugin's got a lot to offer. In fact, I already have a video on the Reverb Shaper on this channel if you want to go check that out, but let me know down below if you guys want to see a more plugin battle with like Pro-R or Neoverb or something like that. So after all that, that concludes this plugin battle. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.